we are talking The Barge People, also known as Mutant River. This one is directed by Charlie Steeds and stars Kate Davies-Speak. Charlie Steeds was responsible for a kind of a British version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I forget what the actual film was called at present, but it was kind of like essentially more or less a British equivalent. It was quite a recent film. And here I feel he's trying to make the British equivalent of The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turn. So what we have four friends that include two sisters are going out for a trip on a barge, you know, get away from the hustle and bustle of city life and everything like that. And they rent out this barge, and, you know, they initially have a little bit of a run-in with some of the locals who seem to be a little bit aggressive towards city folk coming into their land and all of this. But it seems to be matters will get worse. There is a type of mutated fish-looking men that take these guys as their next lunch and want to devour them in gory fashion. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out. So this movie, before I did my review here, I had a quick look at IMDb, and it gets slated in the user reviews with only one 10 out of 10 review, which you can kind of just take out because that's clearly someone involved in the film. But I gotta say, I don't think this movie is a 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 like these films are the reviewers are suggesting. I just don't think it's that bad. Let's talk about what I've enjoyed about this. I think this movie is pretty violent. So those of you who like, you know, somewhat kind of gory films with lots of violence being inflicted on different people, you know, it's not explicit necessarily, but there are, you know, there's lots of kind of like people getting killed, eaten, things like this, heads twisted, all that kind of stuff. I do think it does it's a fairly kind of violent film. People getting stabbed multiple times, monsters getting stabbed multiple times, all that sort of stuff. I actually thought there's quite a lot on there. I also saw a lot of critiques about how the kind of the makeup on these kind of like these mutants wasn't very good. I don't think it was too bad, to be honest with you. Yeah, they're rubber masks, but you're watching a low-budget horror movie. I'd rather that than kind of CGI monsters like you get in kind of like Grimm and things like that. Or Supernatural, that type of thing. I didn't think the masks looked too bad, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, there's a couple of instances where you can kind of see the eye holes, but, you know, come on. It looks fine to me. I think the makeup looks absolutely fine. It doesn't look any worse than like the Wrong Turn sequels. I know the first movie was a little bit of a higher budget film. The latter two onwards were the kind of low budget straight to TV. The makeup looks no worse than any of them. I don't know why people are kind of jumping on it too much. I actually kind of quite like some of the characters as well. Yes, there is one that is a walking stereotype and is more of a cartoon than a character. But for the most part, our main kind of girl and her boyfriend, I actually thought were quite realistically kind of drawn characters and kind of played their roles with some subtlety here. Okay, so what else? Maybe what doesn't work in this movie? Yeah. As I've mentioned, some of the characters are walking cliches, and there's one in particular which is the other bloke on the barge, who is meant to be like this rich, posh guy, and they've just leaned way too far into the cliches on that one, and it kind of it makes him seem like a cliche. There are also the typical kind of like the locals at the bar when the kind of like the city folk come and they all kind of stop what they're doing and look round and stuff like that. Yeah. We've all seen, you know, American Werewolf in London. We kind of can, you know, we don't need to kind of replicate scene for scene and things like that. So this movie does have lots of kind of sort of sequences that you feel have been done in other movies as well. It's not particularly kind of original. I think the whole fact that these are kind of fishmen is somewhat lost, because there's only really one scene where we see them kind of come out the water. Outside of that, they just look like mutated people with clothes on who seem to be perfectly able to have a conversation and things like that. And the other thing I would say, which is a mild spoiler here, is I don't know how well the mutants are realised here, because I don't understand really why they are cannibals, because let's just say they have an income. They are dressed in normal clothes. It doesn't seem to... Britain is not that big a place that they, you know, it's not as if they are in the middle of nowhere. In fact, there's multiple incomes, let me just say. They seem to own property. I don't understand why they are cannibals, if that makes sense. We have a few theories about why they are mutated. There's a theory that we get dropped in conversation that there's, you know, bacteria in the water, or there's chemicals being dumped there, or it's inbreeding. A few things here and there. I always wonder in these type of films why there's very few, if any, female versions of these kind of creatures. There never really ever seems to be any. Anyway, but I got to be honest with you, I actually found this movie quite fun. It's relatively kind of punchy. It was fairly well paced, and you know, I thought the killers themselves were at least visually interesting. Yeah, I would have liked to see more done with them. I think the kind of the fish people angle was a bit of a waste because, like I've said, there's nothing really to that. They just happen to look a little bit like fish people, but they don't seem to be amphibious or anything like that. There you go. They just kind of seem like mutated people. That's it. But I don't think it was that bad. I actually kind of quite enjoyed it to a certain degree. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It's an average film of a B-movie slashery kind of monster of the week type thing. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.